and welcome. Welcome. You belong here. I belong here. We belong here. We all belong here. This concept of belonging, it is one of the most important aspects of this being human, is belonging. It's something that everyone wants, everyone needs, everyone craves. Sometimes we twist ourselves into a pretzel in order to achieve it. You know, we want to belong in our families. We want to belong at work. We want to belong in our communities. We want to belong in social situations. This need to belong is very strong in us humans. But what it means to truly belong is something we're going to be exploring today and over the next several weeks, because we are beginning a new book series based on Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness. And we're going to present it as both a Sunday talk series and a book study done in small groups that will allow us to really live into these transformative ideas over the next 6 weeks. And just kind of a little warning, it's not really a book where you read a chapter and feel really good. It's more of a book where you read a chapter and pause and take a breath and say, oh, she's talking to me. That kind of book. Which is a good thing, because this is where all growth begins, right? So we'll also be looking at this work through the lens of unity principles and see where they intersect. So let's begin, shall we? So the first concept, the core concept, is that belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we truly are. And if that sounds familiar, it's because we talk about that a lot at Unity, right? This idea that spiritual growth is not about changing us. It's not about trying to improve ourselves. It is more about discovering the essence of who we truly are. Our unique individual expression of this one divine life essence, our authentic self. So we belong first and foremost to that one divine source in which we live, move, and have our being, right? We already live, move, and have our being in this. But we don't always remember that. We don't always know it. We don't always feel it. Sometimes we feel like, well, if I just try a little harder, if I just sort of, maybe I should just, I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe if I just kind of change this about myself or be more like the cool kids, then I'll fit in, right? Then I'll belong. So she shares a story in the book about how when she was a teenager and she wanted desperately to fit into this new school that she was attending. Her family moved around a lot, so the need to belong somewhere, anywhere, particularly with a group of friends, was intensified. And so at the beginning of the school year, they had tryouts for the cheerleading team, which she thought, that's it. That's when I'm good at this, right? I can do this. And then I'll get in and I'll have ready-made friends and I'll be invited to parties and I'll have boyfriends. Her parents were like, her mother was a cheerleading, the lead of the cheerleaders, and her father was the captain of the football team. So this was natural for her, right? But she prepared she really spent a lot of time preparing on this. And one of the things she had to do was she went on a starvation diet so that she would make it into the weight. Like, this was in the day that they weighed girls for this kind of thing. You had to be thin enough to do this. So she went on the starvation diet. And she learned the song so well. She knew it forward and backwards. She learned the routines. She could do it in her sleep. She was ready. The time the tryouts came, she was ready. And, lots riding on this for her, right? And so when she shows up, she looks around and notices all of the girls are done in full makeup. And they've got their hair all done in ribbons, and they've got these shiny outfits that reflect the school colors. And she didn't. But she thought that, well, that's not going to matter. I'm so good at this. This is great. I'll get a school, uniform. They'll see how good I am. So she did the weight thing, and fine. She passed through that with 6 pounds to spare. And then she did the routine, nailed it. She did it flawlessly. So when she left, she figured, well, I'm in, right? I'm in. So the next day when they posted the results at the school, her whole family came along with her to celebrate this. And so she gets out and she goes to the school. She looks at the list that's posted and she doesn't see her name right away. And she thinks, oh, well, maybe they put it somewhere else. And she's looking and she doesn't see her name. And then she looks again and she can't find her name because she didn't make it in. She was devastated, But what made it worse was that her parents, the entire way home, did not say a word. Not a word. Not even, oh, good for you, honey, for trying your best. Or, it doesn't matter. We love you anyway. Nothing. So not only was she rejected by the cheerleading squad and a group of friends, but she was rejected by her family. And she talks about how the pain of that just stayed with her. She carried that into her adulthood. And it, ultimately became a turning point for her. So maybe you've had a similar experience, something like this in your life. I know I have. All through middle school and into the beginning of high school, I had a really close group of friends. I was popular. I was pretty popular for whatever reason. And our friends, we were really close. We hung out. We did everything. We goofed around. We went to rock concerts together. We smoked weed together. We would carve a pipe into a potato. Dude, we had a lot of fun. But after I had my mystical experience in the yoga class that I've talked about a few times here before, it all changed. It all changed. They didn't get it, right? They couldn't understand it. And I was kind of wanting to experience more of this spiritual experience. And so an opportunity presented itself to be initiated into transcendental meditation. And I thought, well, I'll learn to meditate, then I'll teach my friends, they'll be interested. Wasn't the case. So anyway, my mother and I went and got initiated into transcendental meditation. Here, the other thing is that before they ask you 2 weeks before the initiation to refrain from any kind of substances. So, right away I couldn't hang out with my friends and our usual activity. And then once I learned to meditate, just something really shifted within me. I just wanted to dive more deeply into all things spiritual. And I suddenly didn't fit in with my friends. I lost them. And I was alone a lot, really into my adulthood, until I found a spiritual community of other people who were also into that kind of thing, who were like me. Now, not to say that I didn't compromise my integrity through my, early 20s, all through my 20s, really, to fit in with a cool group in order to be accepted. I did. But ultimately, that draw of spiritual awakening, of how it felt to be my true, authentic self, won out. And when I lived into that, then I found my people, So in the book, Brene talks about, she makes real clear the distinction between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in says, who do I need to be in order for you to accept me? And belonging says, this is who I am, and I trust that I'm enough. Right? Fitting in is about editing ourselves, and belonging is about living our truth. Also, trying to fit in just costs us too much. It costs us our uniqueness, our integrity, and ultimately it costs us our joy. So she says in the book, here, let me find it here. She says, belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Excuse me. Yeah. So let's look at what she means by wilderness. I mean, this is called braving the wilderness, right? And I don't think she's talking about camping in the wild. Although for some of us, that could be a spiritual test. I know it could be for me. But really, she's talking about a place where we can find our true essence. Where we find our true essence. She says, belonging so fully to yourself that you're willing to stand alone in the wilderness, that untamed, unpredictable place of solitude and searching. A place of solitude and searching, which can be scary. That can be a scary place, right? But again, that's where growth usually starts. And the wilderness has always been a sacred training ground for spiritual masters. This is where Jesus entered the wilderness before his ministry so he could get really clear on who he was and who he wasn't. The same with Moses, is when he was in the wilderness that he had the encounter. He had the experience of the presence of God, that I am. And he knew what his destiny was. Same with the Buddha. Siddhartha had to leave the city gates and go out into life, into the wilderness, so that he could learn about what life really was. And it was in the wild, under a Bodhi tree, that he had the experience of enlightenment. And he knew how to share that with others, with us. So we know that transformation doesn't happen in our comfort zone. It just doesn't. It happens when we trust that inner divine wisdom and we're willing to step into the unknown, into the mystery, into the wild. And when we do, that's when we grow and we become more of who we truly are. So you may be asking, well, why this series? Why now? Well, because there's a lot of people who are feeling disconnected right now. Disconnected from their spiritual center, disconnected from each other. It's like we've forgotten that we belong to one another. So it's time that we reconnect and that we stand in our truth and we open our hearts and we speak from that place of love. We learn to speak from that place of love. So that's really what we're doing. This work is best when we do it together. So that's why we're doing the small group book studies, so that we can practice it, right? So that we can practice being vulnerable, so that we can practice deep listening to each other, and practice reconnecting, practice belonging in real time. So there are 4 different days, times, facilitators that are offering this book study either in their homes or via Zoom. So you want to go on our website, unitychapelhill.org, and sign up, register as soon as possible for one of the groups. There's something that's going to fit into your schedule, I guarantee it. Also, get a copy of the book and start reading. Now, before we close, I'd like to share a little preview of where we're headed, and hopefully I have some slides that are coming up now that have kind of a breakdown in the weeks. So we're starting next week, and week 1 is about the wilderness, and it will be about giving yourself permission. Week 2 is the call to connect. And what she talks about is the high lonesome. What is the high lonesome? Week 3 is people are hard to hate up close. So lean in. Week 4 is speak truth with love. How to have courageous conversations, spiritual integrity. Week 5 is holding hands with strangers. The shared humanity in a divided world. And week 6, I'm really looking forward to this one. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. It's living belonging as a spiritual practice. All right, so let us say an affirmation together to launch into this journey together. Take a deep breath in with me. And together, guided by spirit, I brave the wilderness and I walk in love. And so it is. Namaste. Hi. If this video has inspired you, opened your heart, expanded your consciousness, filled you with hope, empowered you in some way, we encourage you to support what we offer here at Unity Center of Peace by making your donation now. And thank you.